Welcome back to New Realities. This is a show I've been thinking about a long time. We have one of the elders in the field of ET contact with one of the newcomers on the scene, and there's so much common ground and so much we can all learn from each other. Marina Seren and Whitley Strieber, thank you both for being here. Let's jump right in because Whitley, you've talked about this implant in your ear, and Marina, you've just discovered an implant. Do you talk about how and what you discovered, and maybe Whitley can comment on it?
Sure. Well, so for a long time, I have been aware that I have frequent abductions, not necessarily physical, because sometimes they have multidimensional technology. So sometimes they will not necessarily need to abduct your physicality, like the materialized version of your vessel, but the holographic spectrum of it, or aspect of it, which is the frequencies. So many times, like often, occasionally I will, rather occasionally, I will wake up with marks with triangular dots in my left knees. In my knees. And most of the times it will be specifically on my left knee, So I reported, I've taken pictures every time that I woke up with one. And usually when I woke up with one, when I will wake up with one, sorry, I will have had, let's say, certain dreams in which I will be seeing either extraterrestrials or other beings performing things on me, or certain experiences, certain connections, interacting with me. But lately, I found out that besides those frequent marks in my left knee, I do feel that I have an implant on my left ear. Because how I realize it is that I experience certain pressure on it when I meditate, or when I channel, or when I reach certain state of consciousness, and it starts ringing. Like there's a lot of ergs, like sounding like a ringing, constant frequency that is so overwhelming that it makes me think that I have something like a genealogical device there, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense. So I suspect I have that.
What do you think, Whitley?
Well, can you feel the one in your ear, in your left ear?
Yes, I do feel certain pressure there, yes.
Yeah, but when you touch your ear, is there any lump or anything in there?
I personally believe that it is not in the outside.
I see it. So it's inside.
Yes.
If you believe it's there. Well, yeah, I had this implant put in my ear in May of 1989. And I didn't know what to do with it for years. It was studied pretty extensively at a laboratory in Texas, Southwest Research Institute, where they were able to pick up a signal from it. A doctor attempted to remove it in 1994 and failed because it moved from where it is now down into my earlobe. And obviously, I would have had to have the whole ear taken off. So I didn't care to do that. And the next thing, a couple of days after the failed surgery, it came back up here. It was put into my ear by two people, not by aliens. I was awake when they came in, and I couldn't stop them, but I certainly saw them. And my wife, Ann, always felt that I should leave it in because, she said it's there for a reason, and you might be able to figure that reason out. But if you get rid of it, you'll never figure it out. So I've lived with it all these years. And after she passed away in 2015, I began to be able to use it. And I think Annie taught me how from the other side. And eventually, some of the people who had put it in, I suppose, in the first place, came back and explained how it worked to me and who had designed it. It's not an alien thing. It was designed by a man named Konstantin Rodove, who is an expert, or passed away, was an expert on electronic voice communication between the living and the dead. and it has been the most valuable thing I've ever had in my life, in the terms of it's a marvelous research tool, and it is it offers me an ability to communicate that I wouldn't have otherwise. I've written 3 books using it: Afterlife Revolution, A New World, and Jesus, A New Vision, using it as a research tool. It's not channeled research, because I'm not a channeler. I'm too imaginative. I would not trust that. So I use it to find obscure academic work that's useful in my research. That's how I use it.
Do you think Marina should worry about or be concerned about this, or find a way to use it?
Well, I think that my experience was this. At first, I was horrified because they came in their house. They had very bizarre capabilities. They could come past the alarm system. They had the ability to use very powerful magnetic fields that neutralized the alarm system in the house. And I had this thing in me, and it was just frantic, frankly. And my wife kept saying, "Calm down, Whitley. They don't care whether or not you're going to go down to the store and get a candy bar. Let's face it, this is there for some other reason, and it's our job to figure that out." And, at Southwest Research, they collected a signal from it. Unfortunately, the lab is classified that they collected it in, so they couldn't tell me anything about the signal. 20 years later, a couple of guys who had been there told me that the signal was the strangest signal they'd ever recovered, and it was still under study. So, there's something there, and I'm sure there's something there with you too, probably, Marina. And you have to ask yourself a question. Do I want to engage with this or not? And I know from long experience, the second you say, yes, I'm ready to engage with it, it's liable to become harder than ever.
Well, we just had a discussion with Marina before you came on about whether or not she wants to engage and feel giving her power away to something that may be beyond her control. Marina, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, but our conversation, which was great, Alan. Thank you so much for hosting it.
Yeah.
It was more of any specific matter, of this whole gray alien agenda. But when it comes to other connections, I am willing to participate. But without giving my power away, because we discussed that.
You're saying yes to what Whitley just asked you, then, right?
Well, I do not have awareness of what the implant is about, but sometimes when I use my psychic abilities, I get that it's an implant from the Greys, of the Grey hybrid programs, that it's used for the matter of monitoring my progress, because they are interested in our evolution and how that participation in the hybrid programs impact us, in our lives. So, I'm still exploring and discerning the Grey alien agenda, like I did with you, Alan. So I'm not sure what to make of it, but I guess that I will wait until I receive further guidance on it,
Well, I didn't learn to use it until 2015. You mentioned that you're often waked up at 1 o'clock in the morning. Is that correct?
Yes, that happens to me usually.
That's a very interesting thing, because I am too. I'm waked up a little later, like 2 or 2:30, almost every night, and I don't set an alarm on purpose, because I feel it's part of the engagement. And I'm waked up, they'll blow in my face, touch my hand, kiss me lightly, all kinds of different ways. They're very creative, actually, and some of the ways are quite funny. But if I don't get up, then it gets more serious, and it can get very intense. And I often wondered, why is this? Why am I now going on 7 years of being waked up at that hour every single night and having to meditate? I do something called the sensing exercise then, which is where you take your attention and you move it to your body, and that opens you in a way so that something can come into contact with you more easily. But I found out the why of that early hour. It's something in some Indian traditions that's called Brahma Muhurta time, the time of learning. And it seems to me that someone may be wanting to teach you and to engage with you at that level at that time. This might not be so bad. And they've chosen that hour. And so what I would do at that hour, if you can, is drag yourself out of bed and take your attention and move it on to the sensation of your body. Don't try to stop your thoughts. Just concentrate your attention on the sensation of your body and see what happens. It might be that all kinds of ideas and thoughts and experiences will come into your mind. I've seen other worlds this way. It's been quite a trip. It's been quite a trip. And I'm a writer, and I've gotten some of the most marvelous, obscure research materials using this. It's just been such a value to me. They'll take me to, and it works. No one's whispering anything in my ear. What happens is I'll think, I need to know how such and such worked in the past. And the next thing I know, someone will mention something, or a book will come into my possession, or something on the internet. And there's the answer to this question about this incredibly obscure thing. And it's so consistent that I believe it comes from the implant. So
do you think, Whitley, and I talked to Marina about that we've made an agreement on some level to work with these ETs that are beyond the conscious mind? And we also change that agreement if we find it's too intense, too traumatized? Of course, you've been through the worst of it, Whitley. So, I mean.
As you know, Alan, I have been down the rocky road with the visitors all the way. And I'm still here, and I've learned to make this work for me. They're not leaving my life. That's been clear for a long time. Therefore, I'm going to make what I can of my experience with them.
But do we have a choice? Do we have a choice to say, okay, enough already?
I think I had a choice at one point. I think I had choice many times, but I don't think so now. I think I've made a commitment, and it's a life commitment, and probably beyond a life commitment. I think it's probably a permanent commitment.
And one other thing that Marina brought up before is that, and she's heard from people channeling, that there's a hybrid agenda, that they're here to take over our world. Now, I don't know about that. Is that correct that you got that, Marina, from?
Well, not take over in the sense of like harsh invasion, but let's say communicate this narrative, like present this narrative, that is a little bit super coded in my perspective about how the hybrids are meant to land here for the, and they are supposed to be integrated in our society massively to then eventually co-create with us, with our children, the future generations, to create another hybrid species that will kind of like have Earth as their planet. And I believe that that's a eugenic agenda,
Eugenic agenda there, Whitley.
Well, I think that might have happened before, because when you look at us and look at all of the other creatures on planet Earth, we are really very different.
We are hybrids.
I think we've already been hybridized once, at least once. and probably will be again, and maybe are being now. And I doubt we can do anything much about it. I think we should hope for the best. I have seen some high people in that I might think might be hybrids who have been, it looked like a very positive development. I have seen and known another one who was anything but. The poor man was suffering terribly, and he was a very misbegotten. And so, and I've known some that have certain abilities, I would say, but which are constrained by the grays. They can't use those abilities except among themselves, and they're very frustrated, unhappy people. And then I've known some that are very brilliant, gentle people. One in particular who is a marvelous mathematician and a lovely, good person to her core. So it's like the rest of human life, it's a very mixed bag.
Yes.
So you don't think the hybrids would be here to actually overtake the human race, like David Jacobs perhaps would project?
Yeah. Well, I think we overtook the human race before. That's why there are no Denisovians and Neanderthals around anymore. And I think that it's probably an ongoing process, but the spirits of the previous human species are all living within us still. It's not like we're being displaced so much as we are being evolved, I hope.
What do you think, Marina? Because you were a little stressed about the fact that you felt like you didn't have free will.
Well, from my experience so far, the great agendas are, they have self-interest here on Earth. It's a long history because the Greys are us from the future. They destroyed their own version of Earth and they polluted their DNA to the point that they had to time travel to our specific point of time in history to take human viable DNA so that they, by hybridizing with us, they will survive. And so up to that point in which we make these agreements of giving them DNA, I think it's fine. But then they are trying to make us buy into a narrative in which these hybrid children, not the hybrids that some of us are already, like the Starseeds, the indigo, that is fine because we're still part of the collective. We're still the human species. But the hybrids that they eventually create on spacecrafts, they are presenting us this narrative that they are supposed to come here and blend with us to create a new species, you know, that will live in Earth, you know. And I believe that that's highly agenda-based, and that is a little bit kind of like violating to our free will and space, because they always present it in a way that is always, that is like, it's either us or destruction, it's either us or no other positive timeline or other possible evolutionary path for humanity. And we have to understand that we are hybrids, yes, so we have this extraterrestrial DNA already in our genetic makeup. If we will add more extraterrestrial DNA to a degree that we will no longer be part of the species that we are, to get, you know, to not be part of that fractal collective consciousness, I will think that it's a little bit invasive, you know, because I have been hybridized with gray DNA, but again, it's a percentage that is enough to make a difference, but at the same time, not so high enough so that I am not considered the same species as the rest of humans. So I think that that is valid, you know, and there are many of us that are enough hybridized to my perspective to be part of an evolution. But the whole idea of a different, like higher percentage extraterrestrial DNA mixed part of another species coming here, I think that's invasive. And as I was saying, we are already hybridized, so we already have that extraterrestrial genetic makeup. The point is not to add more to that, percentage. The point, in my perspective, and many people perspective, I think it's to awake those codons, those genetics that we already have within ourselves, to become more hybridized in a sense, but not by gaining more from the outside, right? Rather awakening our own genetic blueprint, and it's not that there's only the path of evolution in which we blend with the gray hybrids, but there are other thousands of possibilities, thousands of different timelines for us.
Well, yeah. Whitley, do you agree with that, or do you have your own? Yeah.
I think that the bottom line is, if we lose our free will, then this is hostile. And I've so far not been in a situation where I would say my free will has been compromised in any way.
Even though you were taken against your will at night from your cabin, isn't that?
But the result of that was that I'm leading a much bigger life than I would have led had that not happened. It's like a little kitten is taken into the vet and put on the steel table and given a shot. Kitten doesn't want that and thinks it's a terrible, evil thing that's terrifying that's happened. But at the same time, what the kitten doesn't know is his life has been saved, and gets a chance to live a whole long life because of that. So I'm hoping that this is a positive thing in the same sense.
But you think then you must have made an agreement for that to happen on a soul level, right?
I don't know about that. It didn't feel like I had any agreement whatsoever at the time it happened, believe me. It just came out of the night. And yet I discovered afterwards that I had been involved in this since childhood. So yes, I think it's a very good possibility. And it maybe the agreement was even before I was born.
And what about if you just said, no, I don't want this to happen? Then, of course,
I did that.
You did
that many times. It didn't work at all.
But so then we're being, on the conscious level, we're being manipulated then. I mean,
I think if I had been able to walk away from it, that would have been terribly unfortunate for me. If, in other words, the kitten could have avoided getting on that table, then the kitten would be much the less for it. And I would be much the less if I had been able to say no. I wouldn't have gotten anywhere at all. And it took them, I was a great, big, hulking, screaming, fighting, clawing, wild creature in the middle of their little fragile machine and all their little tiny fragile bodies. It must have been not easy for them either, And they do that night after night, day and night, because they go around the world. They live in the dark doing this work, and they, for years and years, this is their work. And how many people do they experience having the same sort of battle with in a given night, in a given 24-hour period? Dozens, probably. And
they're doing this for us, our upgrade, or for them?
I hope so. And there aren't many here, by the way. People think of them as just a massive group, but it's not that. There's just a couple of families here that are doing this, and this is their place. And there's 50 individuals involved. And their responsibility is to change a planet that has got millions upon millions of people on it. So they work all the time. They never stop.
Well, the one other element I'll bring in is what Linda Moulton-Howe mentions, this battle for the soul that there might be taking place among certain ET races. But what do you think about that?
I would think so. I would think that the soul is the primary issue here. I would never have been able to learn as much about the soul as I have without this, without them. They led me to the pyramid text in the Pyramid of Unis. And it was through the implant that I found the right books to read to understand how to read the hieroglyphics in the first place. And from that to understand the very oldest, that ancient document, which is the oldest religious document in the world, and also the last document of soul science that we have. And so the value of that is just, in my life, incalculable.
Marina, does that change any ideas for you about what Whitley's been through and he's sort of out the other side?
I mean, my perspective is that it is great to have an exchange of energy. It is great to receive assistance from these interdimensional beings, in which they make us grow spiritually, such as Whitley is expressing. So I agree with it. I mean, it's an opportunity for growth, But we need to understand that to receive teachings or to interact for the purpose of evolution or expansion, it's great unless there is an agenda-based purpose that is being, given, that is being kind of like tried to put in between, that interaction for selfish purposes. So I think if he enjoyed the connection and it made him grow up spiritually a lot and explore a better life that he will otherwise not have explored or experienced, I think it's great. And these are the things that we can begin to start exploring with our beings, consciously in many different species. But again, I think that whilst we do that exploration, I think that is really important. It is always in being conscious, that being like aware, being empowered enough not to buy into narratives that could tear us apart into agenda-based interests,
Right.
So
I just want to throw, go ahead, Whitley, go ahead.
Well, I think that they must have things they want to take from us, that if we knew what they were, we would probably object. But at the same time, my experience of them has been that they will give too. In other words, you may have things taken from you, but if you make demands and try to engage with them, there's give back. It becomes a trade. And that was the years of the whole central part of my life, my adult experiences, and learning how to engage with them in such a way that I could get something out of this, as well as being a milk cow for it.
Is it also possible, and I've heard you say this, Whitley, that we don't understand the complete phenomena from our human level? It's
How
so
could we?
Right.
We don't have enough information. And I think that it might be that one of the more disturbing aspects of this is that we're being deprived of that information.
Right.
I mean, after all, we have this huge secrecy thing going here, and that starts with them, because they could end with this. They could end the secrecy in a second, but they don't. Therefore, the secrecy that our government displays is their policy.
Right.
It's the policy of the visitors.
It's so much bigger than what I think people realize. It's so multi-layered and dimensionally epic, this moment in time that we are approaching.
All of us who know it's happening have a chance to make use of it. That's as simple as that. We can make use of it if we wish. And the great majority of people will never know it's happening and will never get that chance. And I think that those of us who know about this need to look into our experience, need to learn, need to look into at each other and to hold each other's in our arms so that we can stand up to it and get from it what is we find of value that's value to us as human beings. And they're going to take what they want anyway, right?
But that is beautiful because and it's what I think you've come to, Marina, the humanity that you value. You know, right, I don't want to speak for you, but you say you identify as a hybrid, but you are learning to value your humanity. Can you talk about that?
Yes, so I was told that I'm a hybridized human. I was given alien implants, genetic implants. And so for a long time, I've been Marina the hybrid. I will call myself a hybrid and, present myself as that. And it is true that I'm a hybrid, but we all are anyways. So to me, sometimes, even though that is true, like the fact that I have been hybridized, it doesn't quit the fact that I am still a human being. Because otherwise, my consciousness, my individual consciousness wouldn't be part of the fractal structure of the collective consciousness of humanity. So I accept my humanity and I embrace it, and I identify anyways as an earth human, and I love it. There's no reason to want to be something else.
No, that's one thing you said in that book. What was the book you wrote? It's a better world, not a better world. It's
a new world.
A new world, where you said we have something that, because we exist in time, that they don't have. Can you?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
sure. I'm coming up on a little past the top of the hour, so this is the last one, and I have to run out of here. We don't have. They are. I think, and I say I think because I can't prove this, but it's my belief from observation that they are outside of time looking in. In other words, they have a very large perspective, so large that they have lost the ability to be surprised. And therefore, they have lost the ability to really live. Because if you think about that, if you did not have the next moment hidden in the shadows of the future, your life would be, what would be the point? You would just be in a sort of stasis. You would not have any adventures, no excitement, no insights, nothing new. And when they can live and see through our eyes, they can gain some of that. And I think that there's very much that this is fine as far as it goes, but that they can take too much from people. And I've had many experiences of them entering me and becoming part of me. And sometimes it's been greedy, and sometimes mostly it hasn't. But
maybe we're teaching them something too. So thank you, Whitley.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
It was nice to see you again, Marina, on your journey.
Likewise. Yeah. A pleasure.
Yeah. Yes. And Whitley, thanks for your contribution to the field. You are the go-to person, because you probably had I say you have probably more lucid experiences than anyone in this field. And I think your insights are valuable in this field. So thanks.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so, because I've where else am I? I'm here, like Robert Mitchum once said, he was standing in a theater lobby, and I saw him in New York, and he was such a familiar face. And Ann said, "Don't go up to him." And I said, and then he looked at me. I knew his son a little bit in those days, so we knew each other a little bit. And I said, "Hi." And I said, "What's it like to be Robert Mitchum?" And he said, "I'm in here and I can't get out." And, all of us who are doing this, you, Marina, me, and so many others, we're in here. We're having to do this. And let's just hope we do it right. That's all I can say.
But I love doing it, because this is the new, we're on the cutting edge of something. I look at all these other fields, and
this is the best place to be. No question whatsoever. about that.
Yeah.
No question there at all. I
Yes.
agree completely.
Well, we'll see you at the New Conscious Life Expo in LA, and then we'll see you at Saturday Night Alive or the Awakened World on Friday, January 28th. So
Yeah. See you then.
thanks for your time. Talk to you
Thank you.
soon. Thanks. So I'm going to continue with Marina just a little bit. Interesting, Marina. That is the guy who's probably had more conscious experiences than anyone else. What do you get from where he's coming from?
Well, what I got from reading his energy, it's that his experiences pretty much started for him when he was a child, because I felt a lot in his beingness, the energy of the inner child, you know, when connecting to those beings, to that, let's say, story on his journey. And I also got that he has a lot of the emotional body involved, you know, in those interactions, because he will always come from emotion, you know, from the heart space. And so I see that, you know, it has been pretty intense, you know, exploration for him.
Yeah, I think it's been intense, and he's made peace with it somehow, and has now kind of sharing insight into these experiences. I mean, he was someone that I looked to when I first got involved, communion, and had some valuable things to say about this. The value of shifting perceptions is what I'm really trying to say. So, and that is what I see your value, your contribution. It's not just reacting, but giving insight into perceptual realities that are coming online, because whether we like it or not, these beings are part of our reality, and we're going to have to learn how to integrate the awareness of them and learn as they're learning about us. So I think what you're doing, standing up and expressing your truth, is helping them learn more about the human being, who they're dealing with, you know?
Well, I think in my perspective, what I'm here on that matter to contribute to, it's reminding humanity about the dynamics and mechanisms of consciousness, so that the exploration of reconnection with these conscious reconnection with these intergalactic, interdimensional interactions, it's made in a way that we make sure that humanity doesn't get to be violated, and our free will is always, you know, respected, because understanding these dynamics reconnects us back to our power as creator beings, so that we are able to create our preferred reality anytime at any given moment, you know. So
well, in Whitley's case, though, his free will initially wasn't being, or mine or yours maybe, but yet we've all evolved because of that interaction that may not be pleasant. So I don't quite know how to understand that, except, you know, I don't want to say on a higher level we consented, because I think we have to respect the human being. But how do we integrate those two parts is what I'm trying to figure out.
Yes. So to my perspective, people who are reacting, as you said, instead of, you know, deciding to take back their power or to end that connection because of their free will being, you know, manipulated in a sense, I think they are not realizing the fact that those beings that they might have been interacting with are not the only kind of beings they can eventually get to interact with. And not just the beings, but the actions, you know, the interactions themselves. Those are not the only kinds of interactions or the ways or the dynamics that they are only able to explore if they wish to explore something. Because I observe he says, that he pretty much enjoys to experience something that is outworldly, that is something that is like a privilege. And I agree with him. I also would prefer to have an outworldly exploration of consciousness instead of a human-based one in terms of like society, you know, like a human outworldly experience instead of human-based like society. But the point is that just because we desire that doesn't mean that we have to accept whatever that comes to us, like whomever that comes, or in whatever format that it is presented. We as creator beings, we have the power to decide that in which format that comes, in which terms that comes, and in which way we manifest it and create it, and with which beings and for what purpose, because that's the point of awakening. Remember that we create our reality, so we can create whatever we truly prefer, not what it is given just, but what we truly prefer. So I think, yeah.
No, somehow that's what Bashar actually says. Reality is not what happens to you, it's how you feel about what's happening to you. I just heard an interview with a woman who was in the concentration camps in World War II, and she says she was not a victim. Victim is a consciousness of reactivity, and what she chose is to respond to the situation. She couldn't change the exterior, but she could change how she felt. And I think as we come to this crossroads in this agenda-based realities that we're all dealing with, and it's bigger than ETs because it's happening everywhere on the planet. Do we follow an agenda or do we follow our truth? And it seems like this is the crossroads where we stand up for what we choose. And maybe it's not in our highest interest, but if it's our choice, then that should be respected, right? That's what
yes, every choice is meant to be respected, you know, because every choice is valid and is as equally powerful or deserving to be seen, to be experienced in creation as the rest of them, you know. So, you know, yeah, like everyone has their free will to do whatever they wish with their life in their exploration of consciousness. But I think that is to be able to create the experiences that we prefer. It's what is coming from us. So we have a history in which we have had experiences that are not preferred, but we understood that they were presented to us because there was an opportunity for growth there, like an opportunity to get something from it by learning from it, accepting it as it is without denying it, and growing from it. But now we are in a point in our evolutionary path in which we now have the ability to explore the fact that we can start to create consciously, to manifest consciousness, or to arrange consciously the preferred situations and interactions that are more of our preference.
Right. I think that's really key, that we are coming to a point of empowerment, deciding, also to be open to the unknown. Just because it's unknown, it's not necessarily fearful, but if we can stay open to possibilities without trying to control every little bit, there is also an evolution in that. So it is walking that line between letting go and holding on, in a sense. So that's how I see it. And I think your journey is a great example of someone who's looking at it all, who's not shying away from the dark side or the undercurrents, but you're choosing to look at it. And so I just want to encourage you to keep going for it. Even it may get more intense as the planet gets more revved up in polarities, but there is light there that is beyond this moment of awareness. But don't you sense it? Don't you sense something really great coming?
Yes. But there are many things, many potential different things coming. So we have the choice.
We have a choice. And that is exactly what we need. And that's what I said on the end of the last show. we need to have the truth so we can lay it all out. And as a race of beings entering the cosmos consciously, we need to know what we're up against. We need to know what we're dealing with. So it is kind of selfish, not to be a victim of that, for governments to say, no, we're not telling you about anything because we know the truth and we don't want you to know. I think it's a maturing for the human race. And you are one of the mature people on the planet here. I know in a way, because you understand the multidimensional, interdimensional aspect. Yes. Anything else you want to share about anything that's come up for you that you just, because there was that response on Facebook, the woman who said to you, you chose this, you don't know, by rejecting it, you're rejecting your higher conscious. Basically, she said that, to you.
Yes. And that's why I replied to her explaining that just because it was initially a choice in the higher mind, it doesn't mean that it's meant to be maintained. If I choose that I do not prefer it anymore, I have the power to decide that it is not of my preference anymore. And that desire to not have that connection anymore, it's also coming from my higher mind. It's not separated. So
right. I think that's a good point, because we're always evolving from the old higher mind to the new higher mind. So to be stagnant, oh, that was the higher mind, keeps us frozen in a old timeline.
Exactly.
So that's a good point. Marina, always good to see you. Anything coming up for you that you want to share?
Not really. I think I already laid it all out.
As far as appearances, you're going to be on a couple of programs. How can people find out where you are?
www.marinaseren.com.
Okay. Thanks for spending the time. And do you feel a little better, more grounded, more solid?
Yes, definitely.
Because you were able to talk about it, or just because you feel, what did that for you?
Both, because, I was able to talk about it, and because I was also doing internal processes. So it helped me.
Right. Great. Well, as you unfold, we want you to keep coming back and giving us updates on the perspective, because I do think you're in the process of discovering more about this, and it may look different to you from a whole different perspective in 6 months than it does now. So just stay open and keep us, updated on your evolution.
Sure.
As we update you. Thank you, Marina Seren, Alan Steinfeld here for New Realities. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you, everyone on the chat. Any interesting comments on the chat? No, just thank you. You are loved. You learn from the dark and the light. I've learned more from trauma than anything. Yeah, I guess that's true. I think we're coming to hopefully the end of learning from trauma. I mean, I know it's valuable, but I think we're moving into a future where the worst parts of human interaction can be overcome, will be overcome. So thank you, Alan Steinfeld, and stay tuned for more programs on this.